America, the awakening is here. We have Robert Kraft back with us. Like we promised, we were going to do episode 2 with Robert Kraft. Through these podcasts, I will be having many different people coming in talking about many different topics that are all about what's going on today. Let the truth be revealed by these professionals that have spent so many hours upon hours, days, months, years researching and understanding where we are today. So, Bob, welcome back to
Hello, how
America,
are you?
the awakening. Good, thanks. How are you?
Good. How are you? Good. Good. It's good to be back. Thank you.
Let's pause a second. Who turned the fireplace off? I didn't. I just timed out. Fireplace never gets timed out. Oh, we'll cut this. I didn't turn it off. Okay, sorry.
You're fine.
Should we get a different color? A second.
All right. I gotta move you down.
Beautiful. I like this, how it's blurred out, but you can still see like your nice decorations. That looks good. Okay, so where will we? Well, let's go ahead and just go. Okay, Bob, what
Yes.
is the topic of the day?
I think we're gonna get a little more into the details regarding what actually happened with the veterans, like legally, like their legal status, and we're gonna get a little more into like how the courts really
Like,
do work or how they're supposed to work. I think
like
supposed to work is probably a better statement.
I think the legal opinions and lawful facts.
Yes, we do. We definitely need to know the difference between an opinion and a fact, because that is a hallmark anchor of our broken system.
All right,
So
well, let's dive into it. Let's just go. Let's just
go.
let's
All right, well,
just go.
let's talk about. We've talked a lot about in the previous time we were together. We talked a lot about like the veterans, but we really laid out a foundation. So let's get to like the legal theory of what happened to the veterans and really where they are and where most of them actually still are and don't even know it. Now, remember, these are my opinions, but research and the elements that have been found solidify this is really what's going on, or really what's happened to the regular veterans, not the ones that enter politics, but they go home, they return home, they go home, their home of record, they return to their families, their communities, or they move on with their quote unquote post military life, which technically is not ever really supposed to happen, which is another thing we'll get into. So when someone joins, and the proper word is, if you go to a recruiting station, it's called the Armed Services of the United States. And in the last episode, we talked about prepositions are very, very important words. When you're saying things like Armed Services of the United States, it means that you are not working for the United States. You are actually working for an organization, because these are organizations. We have to start using the word organization, membership. These are the foundations of the American Republic. The ability to assemble and join different types of organizations is what gives us our dynamic system. What happens is when a military member goes to join the military, they go to the I'm sorry. Armed Services. Armed Services.
I have a mother, so
I
I apologize. My son came through with his phone going.
Yeah.
So I want to apologize to the viewers. This is real. This is raw. This is my family, and this is how we live. Go ahead and continue.
You know what? We need a lot more real. We need a lot more real in the world.
We do. And I want to say, I love you, son. Are you going to work? Yeah. All right. Love you. Bye. All right. Let's go.
So when you go to the Armed Services of the United States recruiting station, right? Remember, and one of the key words is station, because that means it's on the sea, because it would be a burrow or a barracks if it was on the land. So you go to the station and you do your pre-entry, you do your ASVAB, you do all that stuff. When you get done, they send you off to MEPS. Well, that's where we kind of send things to be processed. We go to a processing station. Where do we send things? We want to get them changed. We send them to a process. When you go to MEPS, you are actually being out-processed from the United States of America and the public sector. That is your processing. You are leaving the United States of America. Now, what we really didn't know was that you're not just leaving the United States of America. You are traveling through the federal government. Well, you were because things are dynamic right now, so it's a really exciting time. You are leaving the nation, and you are actually headed to NATO. So you were being released to NATO on active overseas duty in the United States, not America, in the United States or outside of the United States, which is why it's called CONUS, or Continental United States, versus OCONUS, which is other than Continental United States, which is where our ports of call are. And those are important. We're not going to dig into all that stuff because we want to keep it like linear. So what happens is you go off to active duty, right? What you don't realize is even if you're stationed in Georgia, you're not in the United States of America. You're in NATO. You actually work for NATO. So all your resources on active duty are coming from NATO, even though your physical body is in the United States, but you're not part of that public sector anymore. So your legal status has changed. You're at a higher standard. You swore an oath. You're now an American. You're not the public. You're not an inhabitant anymore. You're not an indigenous individual anymore. You're American because you swore to defend from foreign and domestic. So you go off. Now let's talk about when you come back. When you come back, you should be out processing those steps, and you should be returning. And when you're going to the military, they'll tell you, you have to go back to your home of record. You have to go back to your home of record. You have to go back to your home of record. People are physically being returned to their home of record, but their legal status is not following them because Congress and the federal government have put roadblocks in place to stop them from actually getting back to their home of record. Okay? So what's happened is that they've either discharged from NATO, they get their DD, and they get caught somewhere legally between the EU and the South China Sea or the Southern Pacific, depending on what branch. Legally, remember we're talking about legal status.
Yes.
So the way to get back to the nation or to the federal side is you have to get an upgrade. So even if you have a honorable condition discharge, when you apply for an upgrade, what you're doing is you're not applying for an upgrade. You're applying for a overseas duty review, personnel file review. That's what it is. And you go to that hearing, which is out of Washington, D.C., and you go to a base and they put you on a Zoom call, whatever. What they do is you're sitting there and they issue a special order. Well, special order, like special counsels or special investigators or a special employee like Elon Musk. He is in
they hate him right now.
He is in equity. So he is a special employee.
Special. Yes,
or
he
special agent in territory law. Special districts are territory law. That is the Army's jurisdiction. So when you go to this hearing, there's a special order in your personnel file that gives that board special powers in special jurisdiction to review you. But everybody on that board is either a reserve member or a guard member because you're returning to the nation. So what they did is, even if you got that hearing done, which I did mine in 2008. 2008, I did my hearing. And I had to wait a year to get it done.
Wow.
And I didn't even know at the time what I was doing. So you get it done, but the federal government was still stopping the process. So even if you had it, even if you had the court order, even if you had everything, they issued a federal birth certificate. And this is why everybody's freaking out about the Office of Personnel Management. Inside the Office of Personnel Management, there is a birth certificate for me. There is a birth certificate for Donald Trump when he became president. And that is what they used to prosecute him. Because he was never turned He was never returned to his home of record. After leaving the presidency, he was not allowed to return. He remained a public sector individual, an inhabitant, subject to the federal government. So not even he was an American. And that's how these special counsels, these attorney generals that abandoned their posts, they deserted their general law posts to step down into special districts as special prosecutors so that they had of actual monetary interests in the case. They get paid in that case for prosecuting him, all because their Office of Personnel Management was holding his federal birth certificate and would not release it to him to be recorded back at his home of record.
You're kidding me.
Nope. And they have done this to every veteran. Every veteran. They are stuck as public sector individuals, not even individuals. They are public sector persons, which...
Well, I had no idea the president was also involved in this.
It
all makes sense now why they did what they were doing and why he was fuming because of what they were trying to get away with.
Because when he became president and he became commander-in-chief, if you are in a military position or a military status for 180 days, you are considered a veteran. Donald Trump was president of the United States of America for 4 years. He served as an American veteran. He was never discharged. He was discharged, but he was never allowed to return to his home of record like every other veteran. And they held his federal birth certificate at the Office of Personnel Management under the federal government, and they exploited it to make money off of it. Because as long as that birth certificate is held there, they can actually access your Social Security trust and they can liquidate it and take the money as interested parties in prosecution. So they get paid commission for prosecuting.
And what kind of money is that?
Well, they get 10% of whatever they recover. So what was the lawsuit against them? $500 million.
500.
They get 10%.
Wow.
This whole thing was about money. And it was about a Social Security trust. Because your Social Security trust has like $50 million in it. Everybody's does. Yeah. Your Social Security trust.
Let's get into this now. Okay, now we're leading into the average American citizen. That's not the president. That's not a veteran.
Right.
So let's get into that now. Let's, because we're talking, we've been talking and how we're going to be helping all these counties throughout the nation. So
yes,
go.
So the Social Security Trust. The Social Security Trust is a private individual trust fund that is established when, and a lot of people know parts of this, but this is how it kind of works. So there are multiple birth certificates when you're born. Okay. The reason I know is because I have my actual real birth certificate with my footprints on it, my mother's right thumbprint. It doesn't have a last name on it. It literally has my first and middle name on it. No last name. Says I'm born to my parents, right? I have the original, right?
And then you have the one at the county. Yes.
Not the one at the county. I have the one at Vital Statistics that's copied at Vital Statistics, but it's actually the heirloom, family heirloom one. So I have that one. That's the real one. Everything that comes after that opens an account or accesses an account. So when you have the state birth certificate, that is actually an account. When you set up the Social Security number, the Social Security number sets up a trust fund. Everybody under a Hamilton system, we were supposed to be trust fund babies, and that trust system is supposed to be for our future labor as an insurance policy to protect the republic from bankruptcy. So what happens is the government puts in, let's say $1 million. They put in $1 million of equitable asset. They take that $1 million equitable asset, they move it over, and then they issue an account number. And you can tell by the seals. If it's a gold seal, that means it's operating on equity. If it's a black seal or a different color seal, it's in a different jurisdiction. So they take that, they issue an account number, then they take that account number, so they take the instrument, and then they turn it over to a wealth management company, and that wealth management company takes a lien against the asset, let's say $1 million. So now there's $1 million in funds that are put into what's called a warehouse that has what's called a QSIP number. So it's an address. But inside that warehouse, that QSIP, there might be 10,000 birth certificates, 10,000 Social Security numbers. I'm sorry, birth certificates. The Social Security number is the access point that needs to be administered. All these accounts are the assets, treasury instruments that are in the treasury building, that's where the treasury is, because that's where the treasure is. That's where the king's treasure is. That's the instruments. So then they turn these over to wealth management companies, and they get traded on our stock exchange for years. So they are literally making these trades, these wealth management companies, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, all of them. It's called wealth management. It is wealth management. So they are using a lean, real investment from the nation on a loan that they take that and they invest it in this company. And then they make all these trades back and forth over years. So then most people don't use their Social Security number unless they have like sick or something happens, right? Well, then what happens is you get to like 15 or 16, you get a driver's license. Well, what happens if you go and take down a bridge? How does the nation survive if you go and smash an entire bridge and cost $10 million in damage? So they put an insurance policy on it. The driver's license insurance policy is $11.6 million. And by the way, it costs $11 million to become a federal senator. Just so you know, that's where they get their money from. That's how they insure it, so they have the asset. There are trust attorneys that actually, they know about this stuff in Washington, and they know how all this stuff works. So they give you this insurance policy, right? So then you start to use stuff. So every dollar that you've ever earned is actually money that has come out of your trust fund. That is your Social Security trust fund. That's the money you actually earned. Because the nation has to be protected. So the social jurisdiction has to be protected. So it's called Social Security because it secures the nation from bankruptcy. And all together, we call that the national debt that is owed by the trusts of the American people that are the guarantors of that asset. And that's where all this money is coming from. That's where the money that goes to USAID is coming from. That's why it's unlimited money. They are pulling it out of the national debt, and that's what they're spending. Your tax money, you know where your tax money actually goes to? It funds Mexico's government. That's why the Mexico police are called the Federale. They're federal police. Interesting? So I wouldn't know this stuff. I did mortgages, so I used to originate mortgages, and I literally processed my own mortgages, so I learned a lot of this stuff.
I'm sure there's so many people right now that's watching is in awe, like I'm in awe, processing everything that you just shared at this very moment, because we've been lied to.
Yes.
From the day that we came into this world, we have been lied to.
Well, keep in mind, we have a very broken education system.
We are so far behind. It's embarrassing.
I'm not arguing that. We have been
very laughed at. We are like, we talked about this before. We're supposed to be the leader of the nations.
Yes, we are supposed to be the representation of the mark of what the nations of the world are supposed to look to.
And that's why
we have fallen very short.
President Trump has got so much work to do that he's been doing. He's rolled up his sleeves. He's out there getting his hands dirty, getting them wet. He's doing everything because this is, like you said, this has been decades and decades and decades and decades and decades of a mess of their own law, which we have called lawfare. People are like, it's lawfare. It's their own law. No longer the Republic law. And okay, so let's go back to our birthrights. Let's talk about,
there technically are no birthrights. We don't give 2-year-olds a say. That is called an infant or a minor. You have to achieve a level of intellectual capacity before you're allowed to have a say. That's part of the baseline of understanding. We're not going to give a 10-year-old autonomous power. They did that for years. Look at all the crazy kings that went through Europe as kids. They're 9 years old. You're king. What? No way. No. So there are human rights. There are human rights.
So for the future of the republic, for the American citizen, how is this going to work? If we had the trust or the amount of money that we were worth, what was it, $60 million?
Well, by the time they do all these trades for all these years, like you can imagine, this stuff like doesn't stop. It keeps going.
It just keeps going.
It keeps going.
So how is this going to change since we've been lied to, manipulated, and
right
under their law? Now we're back under the Republic law. How is this going to work with Social Security? How is it going to work for our future, for retirement?
As fascinating as it is, Donald Trump has already said he's removing birthright citizenship because that is a federal citizenship, which means that U.S. citizenship will retract back to the actual state territories.
And so do you remember during his rallies and then the opponents, the ones who are saying, he's going to remove your Social Security.
Right.
You're going to have no Social Security. Well,
right.
You're right. So let's talk about what's in store for us.
The Social Security, listen, the trust isn't going anywhere. It's a great system. Okay? So, and we need it. That's our insurance policy for the nation, never to go bankrupt. So, but the key is not the Social Security trust. The key is who is the administrator of the Social Security trust and who is the trustee, because it is a trust. And there's only 3 parts to a trust. You have a beneficiary, you have an administrator, and you have a trustee. Okay? So, what should happen, what is probably going to happen, and that's a lot of the reason that I built this American People's Public Trust, was so that they could start to establish their own administrators that are then make the trustee the U.S. Army judge advocates, moving the system back where they now become the beneficiaries. And they have a community administrator that gets them there. So Thomas Paine wrote a book called The Rights of Man. In the book, he actually laid out this entire concept. It's a whole chapter about general welfare. And what is general welfare? General welfare is shelter. General welfare is food, clothing, education, right? These things that are the baseline of our social society. Now, the way that it worked, and so in the Bible, they called it sacrifice. I'm going to sacrifice. Today, we call it community service. Inherently in our system, what's supposed to happen is that if you don't want to be a part of commerce, you don't want to be a part of trade, you don't want to go off and fight in the military, you don't want to do any of this stuff, right? There's a place for you. We're a place for all people. You go into a community, you're there. In that community, you have an administrator. They make sure that all your needs are met, and you perform community service. And that's your payment for your general welfare. And that's how the system's supposed to work. But everything's been monetized now for profit, that system has to be brought back online. And all of these like profitized buildings and all this other stuff are going to have to be moved, because we're going to have communities where people just go farm, and they have these assets, but they have an administrator that actually can liquefy those assets and make sure that those people are taken care of. When they need it, when they need healthcare, they go down and they go to the hospital. And when they go there, they come back. And when they come back, the bill is submitted to the administrator. The administrator processes the bill and discharges what's in the trust, because they have an administrator. That is the power that Congress, the federal government's been holding. They've been holding administrative powers over our Social Security trusts so that they can funnel that money like a distribution plant to where they want it to go.
And this is why he calls it the golden era.
That's right. And if you look at the bottom of that Social Security card, it says USA in gold. That sovereign fund is to separate those who are leaving the public sector, and they are going to be under their own public community trusts, or they are going to stay in the public sector because they are in a meritocracy or penal colony, and they will have to be put under community restraint, which means they'll be subjects to the federal government. The federal government's not going anywhere. It's just going to its proper position. It's still, I mean, who do you think's going to keep an eye on the former politicians when they're in their penal colony? They're going to do great. They've been ruling the roost for how long?
A lot. Well, talk about federal. Let's talk about the Federal Reserve. A lot of people don't even understand who is in control of the Federal Reserves.
Yeah.
You ask people who's in control of the Federal Reserves, you know what you'll hear? The government.
Right.
It's not the government.
No. Well, it's not who you think the government is.
It's been the banks.
Right.
But who runs the banks?
The banking system is private. Do you know why? So you know the whole thing with 2008, right? The whole banking crisis, the whole mortgage crisis. Do you know why that whole thing went down the way it did? It's really simple. Because the American people have not had their private public community trusts where their assets were held. And because a U.S. citizen is not allowed to own property at all. They can steward property, but they are not allowed to own anything because infants don't own anything. They are subject to their parentage. Okay?
Oh, it's just like the executive order that I believe he's put in that he's about to sign off on is the taxes for the homes. They claim that if we pay taxes for our house, it's not our house. We are actually leasing our house when we pay the taxes. We're not even supposed to be paying taxes for our house.
You're actually leasing a port at a marina, like a docking bay.
Yes.
That's under law. That's what it is. It's
the
a
law
docking
of the
bay.
sea, like we talked about. It's not the law of the land.
It's really crazy when I'm like, look, it's really simple. Okay. It's really simple. It's the law of the sea. Okay. So let's take the law of the sea. The vehicle is the boat. Okay. It's got the stern name tag on it, which is the license plate, and it's traveling down the rivers, which are called the roads. Okay. So each road's a river, and it's traveling down the roads, and then it's going to pull into a harbor. We call that a parking lot. And then you stop at the marina, or you park your boat in a slip, and that's called a parking space. And then you get out and you walk up the dock to the harbor master, which is where you walk through the front door of Walmart, and you go inside. Inside, right? And you conduct your consumer Indian business, right? And you use your little currency because currents are in the water, and you go, right? And you take your currency from your bank on the side of the river, and then you plug it in, and you get your commodity, which now becomes property, but it's not property. It's actually a consumer good. So it's a good for consumption. So then you walk out, and then you're walking out of the port. When they stop you, you're the tractor trailer, and you show them your bill of lading, which was your receipt, and they verify your cargo, and then you head back out, past the harbor master, onto the dock, back into the vessel, to proceed down the river. That is literally how it works.
That's like the best analogy of all, Bob. I mean, come on, but it's true. I know, in our opinion, it's all laid out.
And it's an opinion. So the Seventh Amendment, and this is one that I got really, really, like, you have to become very, very, very focused on the Seventh Amendment. The Seventh Amendment says that no fact determined at trial by jury can be reviewed by any court of the United States except at the rules of the common law. No fact. So that means every court of the United States is a opinion, and only At trial by jury, can a fact at law be rendered? Because that is not a United States court. That is an American court.
Sad.
Or a national court. The military operates at national under Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's why they can declare you at general law. They can give you your knighthood under honors. When you become honorable conditioned, you are a knight of the Republic. What do knights get honored, right? They bow and then they get anointed, right?
Yes, yes.
But we are a nation of peoples. We have no king. And our king is only chosen at our consent until we decide to change. We are loyal to no king. We are loyal to law. So our guardian knights who are anointed are put under law, under honors. And that's why it's called honorable condition. And that's what they blocked. They blocked the veterans as the domestic guardian knight.
So sad.
Yeah.
So
they did it on
sad.
purpose. I said to you the other day, I said, if you read like La Morte de Arthur and you start to realize like we are playing a game of kings and castles and witches and wizards. And this is like Dungeons and Dragons because we are playing a game. I started studying Dungeons and Dragons when I was in Kansas, right? Because I got really fascinated because I remember I was learning law and I realized there's all this abstractive concept that plays into how law is created, just like the rivers and the ports and the harbor and all that other stuff, right? And as I studied Dungeons and Dragons, when I only played one time, but as I studied it, the majority of people that were sitting there were attorneys. And I was like, and they had said that they started playing in law school because that is how they learn abstractive argument. It's very interesting when you can play this abstractive game. So, yeah, it is. It's pretty crazy. And then coming back to that, now we got through opinions versus facts. So this whole concept of the return of the guardians is the return of the veterans to their home of record. And you're told when you're in the military, you are to be returned to your home of record. You are to be returned to your home of record. But nobody understood it was a law return. You have to be recorded on the land record at the probate court where they take that court order and that DD 214 and all that stuff, and they give you an upgrade. You are no longer the public. You are a private individual now this is where it gets interesting. You're an American national. You are no longer just an American citizen. You're actually an American national. Okay, because that gives you the highest jurisdiction, but it also gives you a duty, right? Because you swore an oath to the domestic defense. So it makes you an American national individual, and then a protected class, actually, because you are protected. That court order, there are some places you can record that court order right now, and they will take it and they will change it. They will change your status. But it's very limited where you'll find places like that. UPS is one of them. If you open a UPS box, you need that court order to get it from a commercial box to a private box. So when that happens, you are equal, or actually you're above a civil judge. So like the judges inside the civil courtrooms, you are on the same plane as a civil judge. Your Honor, you know how you log in?
Hold on.
Go ahead.
My battery's saying it's low. It's not plugged in. It's not. Sure. Oh, geez. Okay. It's never me at, so I know where to edit this one. Go ahead.
So yeah, you're under honorable condition. So when you walk into a civil courtroom and they say Your Honor, that is a public honorable condition. But you are a private sector honorable condition. So you're actually above a civil judge because you're in the private sector of that jurisdiction, which is either at equity or it's at general law. Like this whole war on the American veterans was because if the American veterans ever figured out and got organized and realized they are the ones who sponsor the public members and they are the ones who get their stuff together, then they, under honorable condition, get to Esquire those they sponsor into their communities. They are guarded, and the veteran becomes the Knights Templar, the Knight of the Templar, and everybody in their community becomes their squires who are protected by the Knights. And that's what they didn't want us to figure out. It's the veterans that have to sponsor the public to protect them.
Amazing.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
why they withheld everything. So
this is like so much education here. I mean, you know, Bob, it's always great talking with you, and there's so much to learn. And, you know, we're going to keep these episodes going because we're all about educating the people. We have been lied to, misled, deceived, manipulated for so long that we have to go back.
Failed is a big word.
Failed system. That's right. We're going to go back to ground zero. I mean,
yeah, we're going to have to.
And this is what we're going to do. And there's just so much more that we are going to talk about. So we're going to end this episode because this is a great ending. And I believe our next episode, we are going to go over, which is going to be very important. You don't want to miss episode 3, about basically how you become a trust in your own county. That is going to be very huge. That's another thing that Bob has started. Once again, his website's up here. I highly recommend you go to his website, get to know Bob, what he's doing, his journey. He is one of the chosen ones. I really believe that in my heart. He's following Jesus, doing the right thing. It's very, very important. One thing that people don't understand is we have to start all over. And when Trump said, they're not after me, they're after you, he's 100% correct. When Trump said, we have to do this together, Trump is leading the way, but he cannot continue. He's trying to show us the way. He's leading the horses to the water. Here's the water, start drinking. And that is exactly what he's doing. And that is what we are now doing. And you, Bob, are showing people how to take the land back in each county. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. It's so important because the people don't even know that your land in your county is not registered as American soil. We have to start all over.
It's flooded. There's a flood.
Okay. Would you like to say anything to the viewers before we end this episode?
Nope. I look forward to the next episode. There's going to be there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of work to do, and people need to get prepared and get ready because there's an entire nation that has to be rebuilt that's been dormant for 50 years. It's been degraded for 200.
Bob, can you go ahead and share your website one more time with everyone? We're going to put it here in the link. I highly recommend you go to his website, start following Bob. I mean, he's got social media as well. He's been kicked off several times. He gets back on. He gets those followers coming right back after him. I love it.
Yeah.
He's definitely well worth to read and listen. And once again, at the end, make up your own decision. We're just here showing you the way.
Well, we're doing it too. So we're not just showing it.
It's action. There's a lot of action.
We're walking it, like we are walking this line too, because we're all in the same boat, and we're all gonna have to take a piece of it.
Yeah. Well, you've already proven yourself, so especially with the veterans.
Well, I'm sure there's far more to learn. Every time I uncover something, it's like a new hole to run down.
Oh, what's your website?
You know, the next time we should probably get into the postal system a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Because that will be very important.
So we will go over the law of the land of your county, and we'll go into the postal system on the next episode.
Yes.
How about that?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
What was your website again, Bob? Would you like to tell the viewers?
It's OurUnitedRepublic.com. It's OUR United Republic, all together.
All right. So, don't forget to follow, guys. And once again, this is America, the Awakening, and we are here to awaken, and we are here to empower, to lead, to bring truth, healing, and freedom back to America. Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Follow, share. Awesome.
Good?
You did good. Yeah, you did good.
Yeah, that's funny. We went down the rabbit hole of Social Security Trust. You were like, wait a minute, what?
You got me off. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's huge. That's like, so now what we have to figure out, my girl, she's going to be here. We're going to cook dinner. We're going to start editing these videos, and I'm going to make 2 commercials out of these. I got to pick which I love doing this stuff. So PowerPoint, words you said, my expressions, bring them together, and we're going to put them on TikTok to get people to come here. Hey, Kaya, what podcast are we going to be using for this? Where are they going to find it?
Everywhere. It's
Everywhere.
the full episodes are going to be on
Hey, that's
YouTube,
what have you been listening to?
Spotify,
Fleetwood Mac?
Patreon, and
That's a
the
Fleetwood
music,
Mac
and
song.
then the clips of it will be on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, like the shorts, like the reels.
Okay. Oh, so the reels will be on all over social media, but it leads them to our podcast, and the podcast is going to be on Spotify or
Spotify and Apple Music and
Spotify, Apple Music.
yeah, they could do maybe. I don't know. People are going
Audible will be great too. My kids love Audible, huh?
You can do it on Patreon.
Patreon. We're going to start a Patreon account so we get more equipment, get things done, and to help as well. If you need stuff, we've got some resources to some items.
Okay. Yeah. Good.